Hey Navneet,
Great.
welcome to WebEngage. Thank you so much for taking out your time and agreeing to do this. My name is Chirag. I lead the content marketing and special projects team here at WebEngage. For the viewers who are viewing us for the first time, if you could just introduce yourself, what do you do currently, what's your background like, and where do you come from, that'll be great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chirag, and thank you, WebEngage, for giving us this opportunity for all the 30 under 30 people who have won the award. I'll just give my background quickly. My name is Navneet Singh. I have studied BCom Honors from Shri College of Commerce. That's in University of Delhi. Post that, I started working in a couple of research projects, and I'm working with my current company, Mooofarm, since 2019. So Mooofarm is a dairy tech startup. I started working with Mooofarm in business development and CSR projects. We quickly ran, because it's a startup, we started developing more into the tech side of it, and I started handling the customer acquisition and community building of farmers, and that's where the concept of community building, Mooofarm Sabha, came in. Slowly, I delved majorly into marketing. I'm currently handling brand marketing and majorly the communication side of it. Last year, I was leading growth marketing, and that's when I applied in the 30 under 30 as well. And yeah, we're working with WebEngage throughout our journey as well, for reaching out our farmers, our ultimate customers. Yeah, so that's a brief about my work myself.
Super.
Yeah.
So your journey from BCom honors to business development to now running retention and customer engagement and Mooofarms.
Yeah.
I'm sure that wasn't like a conscious career choice. So how did this transition into retention happen, and what got you interested into retention, and why are you still here?
It's actually very interesting, because I think most of the people who will be listening to this will agree to the fact that once, especially like if I dated back to 2018, retention wasn't the term which was popping up, But for me personally, when I graduated from BCom Honors, I didn't want to go to a B school at that stage. So I wanted to work, especially as chose startups. And I was a little bit niche about choosing my startups. So I only chose the startups which were working into the social entrepreneurship area. So Mooofarm was one of the names which I had in my list. I applied through, and as I said, I started working majorly in the business development side of it. As the startup grew, and there were the needs of growth, somebody is handling the customer engagement. I got the opportunity to handle that, right? In terms of to talk very specifically how to give the notification to the farmers, what will be the SMSs that will go, etc. That's where the term retention first started popping up in my career. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And something that I was handling. And especially once we you start working with WebEngage, our retention rates and our numbers were also going really well. And that's where the interest developed more. And what led into the actual role that I was into was the growth term. That was also, again, a first time that I heard. So it wasn't definitely not a conscious choice to become a growth marketer, but working in a startup, you start with something and you develop into something else. And I think that's the beauty of working in startups as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm sure there must be a lot of learning for you along the way, transitioning into roles and taking on new responsibility, your career objective, your agenda, keeping all of that in mind. If you could go back in time and teach your younger self one thing that you learned very late in your career, what would that be?
Experiments. I think when I started, I was very scared. Again, this was something like, oh, even if I want to run a campaign, it has to be perfect. It has to be something which is the campaign that's going to create a difference. And actually, especially in the niche industry that I'm in, agri-tech, dairy tech industry, experiment is the way to go, that I learned while on the job. And I give this whole credit to my managers, my founders, that I work closely with the founders. And one of the very important and advantage working with the founders is that they give you the leverage to fail. They give you the leverage to experiment. And I think that's what I learned on the job, that the more you experiment, the more you find out that how beautiful and how amazing the campaign could go, in the ways that you might not have imagined when you were curating your campaign. So I think one thing is that going very heavy on your A/B testings, or whatever you call it as, in your job role, heavy with experiments. I learned very late, should have learned. I wanted myself to learn at a very early age.
True, man. one of the very interesting things you mentioned is you got the support from your managers, from your superiors to go out there and try new things. For a lot of newcomers today, right? Somewhere they lack that freedom of experimentation. And the early you start with experimenting things, the better you get at your job, you grow faster because you learn a lot of things on the way. So I
Yeah.
totally agree to that. Now, having said that, right, today, the way you work, you must face a lot of challenges in terms of people, processes, maybe personal stuff, right? For example, I find it very hard to focus on physical, what do you call it, physical exercise, right? I can't keep myself fit, and that's one of the things that keeping me back from probably being more productive at work. If you could
Yeah.
change something around you today, what would that be?
Okay, so I will mention two things because we're discussing here more of the professional thing. So I will first discuss the personal thing that you mentioned exactly. I'm currently struggling with the physical exercise aspect as well. And secondly, which I from the professional side, um, what's happening with me is uh, actually it's something that I want, not just for myself, and I feel this is a change or a habit that people working in a startup culture should develop, and that is being okay with not having processes and developing and building them while you're doing the job. So what happens is that you start a campaign, you start a project, you start a pilot, there are no processes around you. And that sometimes bothers us a lot. And especially when you're in a startup, there will be projects and pilots given to you, and there are no processes around it. And it somehow bothers you a lot. And I think that's where I want, what had bothered me, as a challenge as well. But what I feel very strongly is that use it as an advantage and build a process, because when there's not a process, you have a leeway to build one. And I think that's not a challenge that I used to consider it as a very big challenge. It actually is a very big opportunity where I got the chance to develop my own processes and make the systems run as efficiently as I wanted them to. So I think that's why that should be one thing.
True, true. I totally agree to this. And there's something that I believed firmly in very early stages of my career. There's no joy in painting an already painted Mona Lisa, right? The joy is when you get a blank canvas and you start painting from scratch. That's and I totally agree to it that when you have no processes in place, that's when you can actually shine, create things according to yourself, and do some amazing work. So, with that said, we come to the next segment of this conversation, which is Never Have I Ever. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. You can choose to answer them, choose not to answer them. If
All
you
right.
answer them, do give me some justification around it, um,
Sure thing.
and we'll take it forward from there. Okay?
Sh- Sure,
Super.
let's start.
So, question number one. Never
Yeah.
have I ever created a failed campaign and then blamed it on others.
Blamed it on others. Um, no, never. I have created a failed campaign. I would say I've created a poor campaign, yes, which didn't work well. To mention it, it was a campaign on WebEngage exactly that we were trying to somehow figure out the number of uninstalls happening. It was not a failed campaign, but the campaign didn't, was a little poor campaign, wasn't as per the expectations, but never blamed it on other. Yeah, never blamed it on other.
Super, super ownership. Nice.
Yeah.
Never have I ever sent a campaign with failed personalization tags.
Oh yes, I have. I have sent a campaign without a personalization tag. So yeah, I have.
I would have seriously judged you if you said you haven't, because almost
No,
every
no, no.
marketer out there has done this at some point in time.
Yeah, I have actually, and uh, it's a very big dilemma, especially in the industry we are in, because we work with farmers and they do not give you a lot of data, unlike the other industries, right? The people who are working with the urban or second tier two audience. Our customers do not give you a lot of data in terms of building that very personalized campaign. So yeah, I mean, most of the times, knowingly or unknowingly, it happens.
Super. Never have I ever tweaked my reports to save my ass.
Um, Tweet. I would say no, because again, the credit goes not to me here. Credit goes to the people, the founders I work with. They have never created such an environment that I had to tweak anything or say. If I fail or I do pour in any numbers, it is what it is. And then, it's the company Mooofarm where I work, the culture is such that we're like, oh, this, okay, if this doesn't work, something else will. Let's figure out how. And this is not just about founders, but the team as well. Like, it's a very collective effort that we all work with. And absolutely, the credit of this question is not to the team. Like, they never gave me a chance to tweak a report, but if I had a chance and I had a manager that I had to, I would have, for sure.
Absolutely. Never have I ever sprayed a campaign to achieve my month-end numbers.
Sprayed a campaign? What's that, sprayed a campaign?
So maybe just picked up the entire segment and just ran a blast campaign to everybody because I was short on numbers, maybe short on transactions, or
No, I maybe
never.
not the industry that I am into, that we have to know. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. And coming to the last one, never have I ever picked a bone with my manager because he asked me to run a campaign that did not make sense or was stupid in nature.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I have. I think it was actually a lot of things that we have a conversation back and forth about, that this is what we shouldn't do. And fortunately, in a good environment and a good work culture, that it get listened to. And if I have a point and valid enough, that it never gets
So
into the
I'm sure there
implementation.
must be conflicts of interest, right? How do you settle that? Do you settle that with data? Do you settle that with past experiences? Do you run experiments? How do you settle those conversations?
Yeah, I think it would be a mix of the past data, and if both of us are not settling to an argument, we might run a short experiment and see the pilot and see how is that going. And if whatever runs it in favor of, then we go ahead with that. But yeah, most of the time it is a mix of data and doing the experiment in itself. Yeah, experience and thoughts, like, it's not something that we would run the argument with. Yeah, win the
Okay.
argument with.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, with that said, Navneet, thank you so much for taking out your time and agreeing to do this. I really appreciate you connecting all the way from Melbourne. I know there have been differences in time zones, and we were able to do this. Thank you so much, Navneet. I hope to see you in person really soon. We'll continue this conversation offline, pop a couple of beers, and take the conversation forward from there. Thank you so much, Navneet. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Maybe pop a couple of juices because I don't drink. So
Oh,
that's it.
nice,
For
nice.
sure. Let's do
For
that then.
sure. Apple juice
All
only.
right. Apple. All right, Chirag. Thank you so much. Lovely meeting you. Looking forward to see you soon.
Same here. Bye bye.
All right.